Hurricane Lee is not heading straight for New York City, despite what you may have heard over the last few days, but it is still a major hurricane, and it will bring some impacts to the East Coast this weekend. What can we expect? Hi, I'm John with New York Metro Weather. Today is Monday, September 11th, and you are looking at Hurricane Lee still spinning in the southwest Atlantic Ocean, getting its act together a little more again this afternoon, but still has been battling both wind shear and dry air over the last couple of hours, as recently as this morning. Still a little bit more symmetrical this afternoon, and the National Hurricane Center says it is still a major Category 3 hurricane. The track over the next 24 to 48 hours starts that northward turn that we've been anticipating. Technically, the Hurricane Center says it will strengthen back into a Category 4 tonight into Tuesday, and then start to recurve northward. So the good news in the short term is that it will curve northward far enough west that it avoids impacting Bermuda directly. There will still be some high seas and rough surf there in part of Bermuda, but the northward turn will occur far enough west that it doesn't impact Bermuda directly. Then the storm will start to weaken. It's moving into cooler ocean waters, which tropical systems don't like, and it'll also accelerate and start to interact with the mid-level jet stream, which tropical systems also don't like. So a lot going on here in the next couple of days, but that northward turn is starting to come into focus. Here's the most recent super ensemble. We've been using this tracking Lee over the last couple of weeks. And the first thing you'll notice is that we now have better agreement on where this system will start to turn north. There's still some outliers. Some are faster, some are slower. But we don't have these members that are way over here to the west. Those were the ones that we were concerned about, because if the storm did turn way west here, it could have a much easier time impacting the northeast coast directly. That was the concern. Now we've seen those members have been weeded out, and it looks more likely that Lee will turn northward and then accelerate northward while remaining offshore. That doesn't mean we're totally out of the woods in terms of impacts in New England, and we'll get into that in a second, but the direct beeline towards the northeast U.S. coast appears to be off the table at this point. There are still some members that are leaning further to the left, and we'll have to keep a close eye on those in the next couple of days. But we can start to settle in on the idea that Lee will turn northward and then hook back a little bit west before then moving into Atlantic Canada as we move into the early part of next week and this weekend coming up. Let's look at what the storm looks like from a detailed perspective as it comes up towards New England. So this is valid on Friday morning. And the first thing that I want you to notice is that there is a front sitting right here. So Lee is making its way north, but there's already a cold front that has moved off the coast of New England, and Lee is going to interact with that. And it'll start transitioning away from being a tropical storm as a result of that. But either way, it pushes northward, and it actually does curl a little bit back to the north and west towards New England. So that allows bands of rain to extend back towards the New England coast as of the latest European model that we're looking at here, impacting parts of Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and even at times parts of Connecticut and maybe even eastern Long Island as well, as the system makes that little hook back to the left. But then the European says it continues off to the north and east into Atlantic Canada with big rain and wind in that region, with a large majority of the northeast United States spared significant impacts. But there will still be some impacts. If we look at the wind with Lee as it comes northward, that wind field has expanded. Right now, it's a really tight tropical cyclone, and as it comes northward and starts to interact with the mid-latitude jet stream, that wind will expand out from the center. So there's quite a bit of wind impacting even parts of the New Jersey coast, Long Island, and southern New England by Friday evening. And then on Saturday, when it makes that closest hook, that closest approach back towards the coast, the European model says it's going to be very windy along the coast of Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and even parts of Rhode Island, Connecticut, Long Island as well. Now, this isn't a major impact system. It's not looking like a disaster, but it does look like, almost kind of along the lines of a very strong nor'easter as it makes this hook back to the north and west. And you have those really strong winds on parts of Cape Cod and parts of eastern Massachusetts as well. Then the system weakens, those winds die down, and it pushes northeast into parts of Atlantic Canada, and things clear out by Sunday across the northeast United States. Once again, from a rain perspective, The majority of models right now keep this far enough east that the majority of the Northeast avoids a big rainy day on Saturday, but it does get rain bands into the coastal regions of southern New England. So we could have a rainy and windy day along the coast of southern New England. New York City looks to be far enough away to avoid rain, but still could have some clouds pushing back into that region. Here's the cloud canopy on water vapor simulation. European model says those clouds Saturday morning, they reach back even into parts of New York City, perhaps even kissing parts of Philadelphia on Saturday morning as Lee hooks back to the north and west, and that canopy stretches across New England, and then the system starts to weaken and move off to the north and east, and things really improve on Sunday. The other thing to think about is wave heights, right? Because even though this storm is not coming and hooking inland, it still has produced this huge swell as it moves northward, and so models are suggesting a large increase in wave heights and swell height as Lee moves northward. So this will result in not only the possibility of some surge along parts of the New England coast, but also some coastal flooding, as well as some beach erosion in the areas really from Long Island to the north and east along the states that we discussed earlier. We could see some beach erosion, and then obviously big swells in Atlantic Canada as the system moves off to the north and east. So again, to kind of recap this, Lee is moving northward. That turn is coming into better agreement. It is not heading for New York City, but it will hook back far enough to the west, at least on latest guidance, that this rain and wind will definitely impact parts of southern New England, perhaps even back to parts of Long Island, and we could see these rain bands bring a rainy and windy day to a lot of regions. It's those coastal areas that are really going to see the impact from the wind from this system as it moves close to the coast on Saturday and brings the potential for wind, beach erosion, and coastal flooding. So we're not totally out of the woods with Lee. It is going to bring impacts to New England, but the hype and the clickbait that you've been seeing about the storm coming directly into New York, directly into New Jersey or Delaware or something like that, that is off the table. We're not looking at that as a possibility anymore. But still, if you live in these regions, keep a really close eye on Lee over the next couple of days. We know that small fluctuations in this track could have a huge impact in the actual observed weather, especially if you're on Cape Cod, the coast of southern New England, or Atlantic Canada here. We want to keep a really close eye on Lee. If you're in New York City, New Jersey, Delaware, and Maryland, keep an eye on it anyway, just in case. It looks like right now confidence is increasing. The storm will head off to the east and we'll just get a very glancing blow, but we could be looking at some high seas, rough seas, and riptides this weekend as Lee passes on by. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you are following us for all the latest updates. If you have any questions, leave them right here in the comments. We'll be back with an update for you on Tuesday morning.